Greetings. I'm Terry Rhodes, Vice President for Quality, Curriculum, and Assessment at the Association of American Colleges and Universities. We welcome you to the second in our series of Next Generation Assessment WebBite interviews with the leaders of each of the 7 regional accrediting bodies in the United States. We asked each leader what they have been hearing from their member campuses during the pandemic related to 2 critical areas: the campus climate for assessment on those campuses, and what expectations the accreditors have for useful evidence of student learning going forward. Here we speak with Christy Faison and Heather Perfetti from the Middle States Commission on Higher Education.
I'm a faculty member in Research and Evaluation Methods and also the director of the School of Human Development and Organizational Studies in Education. And today we're here on the Web Bites with co-host Tammie Cumming to talk about next generation assessments from the accreditors' point of view.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tammie Cumming. I'm the Assistant Vice President and Associate Provost for Institutional Effectiveness at Brooklyn College of the City University of New York. And it is a great pleasure to introduce our guests today, Dr. Heather Perfetti and Dr. Christy Faison from the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, of which Brooklyn College is a member. So really happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Tammie. It's great to be here, and thank you, David, as well for this opportunity. My name is Heather Perfetti. I am president of the Middle States Commission on Higher Education.
Hi, this is Christy Faison, and I am the senior vice president for accreditation relations here with the commission.
Okay, well, thank you. Our first question today is really, we just sort of want to get you an idea about the pulse of what's going on your campuses. And so we sort of want to say, given all that's happened in the wake of the COVID-19, what have you seen in terms of the changes in assessment and accreditation at the institutions of higher education?
So I'll be happy to start and address some of the changes that we've seen in accreditation. Obviously, accreditation activities have been impacted by COVID-19 in a number of ways, including by the guidance offered through the United States Department of Education, and in particular, the flexibilities that they offered in terms of distance education. So we've been able, in turn, to offer flexibilities to our institutions who had to move, often without notice, to online education and supporting their students differently. We are gathering more information from our institutions, but we know that they've reported some of the challenges in that movement toward distance education and ensuring support for all of their students, but they also recognize the number of positive directions they were able to go as part of this very immediate shift resulting from the pandemic. In addition, we have waived policies and procedures to support accreditation activities during the pandemic. Some scheduled visits had to be delayed while others took place virtually. And we were thrilled with the opportunity to be able to support our teams that were able to conduct the evaluations as planned and as scheduled. And I certainly, on behalf of the commission, have to recognize the heavy lift of our peer evaluators who were able to conduct visits, were able to stay committed to the process of peer review in the most challenging of circumstances. And in other cases, we had to delay visits, but we look forward to rolling those out appropriately and in a way that ensures quality moving forward. I would ask Christy to speak to changes in assessment that we're hearing about and learning about from our institutions.
Thank you, Heather. Let me say that I am immensely proud and impressed with the way our institutions have looked after our students, their learning and their overall well-being. Hearing from some of our institutions, they had to make many modifications and adaptations to their assessment processes. Obviously, the biggest one assessments that had been administered face-to-face have moved online. But other kinds of modifications that were made had to do with timing and timelines. Many institutions revisited the timelines of their assessments. Some extended opportunities for students to respond, even by giving incompletes and allowing those assessments to continue through the summer and into the fall. Our institutions have also looked at other ways that assessments can be done, including the use of simulations, including video submissions. They have come up with some very creative ways to conduct assessments, and one of the institutions that we have communicated with says some of those creative assessments have led to possibly improved assessments. And so there actually has been a silver lining to some of these modifications. But there are really two areas that make me so proud and so impressed to be a member of the higher ed community. And the first has to do with the peer-to-peer mentoring that occurred in this assessment environment. Undoubtedly, some of our colleagues felt more comfortable than others moving to an online assessment strategy. And our Centers for Teaching and Learning, our assessment professionals on campus, our instructional designers, and our peers with more experience in the online environment reached out and helped their colleagues within their campus community and across campus communities. There was a lot of collaboration and cooperation. So that was the first thing that really warmed my heart, that peer-to-peer support. And then the second thing that came through loud and clear quickly after institutions had to pivot and make some of these adjustments was the care and concern of the students. While assessment of student learning is extremely important, our faculty were equally concerned with students' ability to have access to technology, to Wi-Fi, to housing, to food, because without those things, the assessments were not going to be successful. And so they looked after our students. So I can only say with the greatest admiration for my colleagues on campuses that they not only pivoted, but they took care and concern to make sure that student learning was still the focus of what they were doing. While we provided flexibilities in timelines and policies, we still expected our institutions to assess how well the students were learning so that they are prepared to progress through their programs. And from what we're hearing, they paid full attention to that area.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What I saw was people really came together and became that village and supported one another. And it was really the basis actually for this WebBite series that we're hosting today, because we're putting pieces together of information from experts like yourself, accreditors, assessment experts throughout the world, so that people in need of support can get to the WebBite that pertains to their question more easily than these long webinars. So we really did see that that was the consensus among the country in dealing with this unexpected and unprecedented situation. There has been some chatter, though. People are trying to figure out, so what does the future hold for assessment? We're now in this new educational environment. Some say we probably will never go back to the way it was completely prior to COVID. What is your advice for people moving forward on how assessment will be considered by accreditation organizations such as yours, where really it's embedded in every single one of your 7 standards, and where that's going to take us for the next generation of assessment?
So I'll go ahead and start on the whole future of assessment. Assessment is actually going to be even more important. It's always been the hallmark of the accreditation process for us, but because our institutions are pivoting and are modifying and are adapting, it's more important than it has ever been before to assure that students are acquiring the appropriate skills and knowledge that we say that our programs provide to them. And so assessment is not going away. You don't see a future without assessment. We're not taking a pause, or we're not suspending assessment. It is going to continue to be important. Now, the modalities of the assessment, we can expect some changes. I think there are going to be some lessons learned from the spring of 2020 moving into the fall of 2020 that will go on, and we may find assessment recreating itself. As an accreditor concerned with quality, Our standards are still going to speak to institutions being able to demonstrate to us that they are assessing student learning. And so if I have any advice to our institutions, as you are making these changes and adaptations, that you are doing them through your appropriate governing processes, and that you are documenting all of the assessment modifications that you have made, so that you can revisit those to see if those are the best and most effective methodologies to use moving forward.
So I'll add to what Christy has provided. I think focusing on lessons learned is really critical during this moment in time. And what we have found, which she's already spoken about, is the collaboration around assessment and many other critical service areas for students and for the higher education community. We encourage our institutions to think about the ways they can celebrate how they progressed through and remained resilient in this pandemic, and how they can share that with other institutions that maybe suffered some challenges that were different from other institutions, or other institutions were more easily able to overcome some of those challenges. We know that some institutions have thought about pausing on assessment, thinking about a pivot around assessment. Whatever approach the institutions consider or take, use this as an opportunity to make assessment more valuable to the students, more valuable to the academic programs, more insightful to student services, and most beneficial to the institution. Because from our perspective, with our commission, we are not prescriptive around assessment for good reason. We want institutions to focus on their mission, to ensure that the culture of assessment is permeating throughout coursework and programs and services and the institution. And we know that institutions are going to leverage what they have learned during these most challenging times to become even stronger as an institution. We have seen it, and we know that institutions are having the right conversations about the future of higher education.
Thank you. This has been very helpful. I know that this is just a great way of conceptualizing where we're going, and it's good to hear that we're going from what is a pandemic that often raises great concerns to an environment where you're talking about greater collaboration, greater creativity, and in fact, things going better and us learning from this experience. And so I want to thank you for coming today. I think that's just a great take-home message for our audience out there.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really, it's been a great conversation.